Ezekiel. I don't know, but on first principles, I think either on first principles or on against Celsus. He talks about it a little bit, where he interprets First Corinthians 3 as the way that I guess how Catholics might understand it to some degree, about like an actual fire after death that people are purged through. So Origen understood those verses in that way. That's probably one of his main proof texts for the doctrine.
Yeah, the
I've been able to
Catholics.
gather a lot more. I haven't put them on the website. Go on.
Well, the Catholics have like several articles. There's no shortage of articles. The Catholics have a lot of quotes on it, and they're all legitimate quotes. You can very easily see, but I think we have stuff on the website. But even Catholics have put that stuff together, and it's very obviously something that was taught early on. It's just nowhere near as developed as it is now. It's much more vague. But there are some differences, though. There's the main thing that the early Christians believed, and I don't even know if I should say. Luke, have you returned?
Yeah, I'm here now.
Do you think it's worth even talking about what the fathers say about the purging?
Just
You
only.
guys already did in the call,
Yes.
like a long time ago.
Yes, it's a call
You
we
guys
had on.
did.
And did you hear that, Mikey?
I did hear some of it. I think I was even there for that call. I see right here that Justin Martyr isn't Justin Martyr one of the people the Orthodox use.
I don't know, but you should definitely watch that whole video. If you haven't, then you should only ask questions if you've actually watched everything we said about it, because otherwise it might be answered. But the long story short is the abbreviated version of the doctrine is every single person who dies, having already been baptized, will go into paradise at their death. But if it's found that they had practiced some kind of sin or had not repented of a lesser sin, or maybe multiple lesser sins, then rather than God completely throwing out the soul and saying, well, you're completely worthless now just because you have died with some sin on you, instead God will purge that person. And the church fathers use that word purge, which is where we get the word purgatory, where you get your souls washed off. And they don't give much detail about it, but they say you should not rely on this hope to excuse you for very serious sins or even practicing of the lesser sins. And that's why we don't speak about it very much. We don't want you guys to become bold in practicing sin. And the fathers are wise not to talk about it too much either. Not just because it would embolden some people to sin and think that they have a hope to still be saved, but also because there's not much information about it. But look, suffice it to say, the Catholic doctrine of it, which they claim to have knowledge of, is completely bogus. They don't know how the afterlife works. Any of their mystics claiming to know it are lying. Their whole 9 circles of hell based on Dante's Inferno is pure fiction. Bailing people out of hell through indulgences and other stuff, I mean, that's all bogus too. Whereas the Orthodox, they have a different version. They have something called toll houses. You guys can look it up, Orthodox doctrine of toll houses. They've got their own version of purgatory, and again, it's based on some stuff that their mystics came up with, and a lot of it's just made up garbage. And there's some truth to it, but why don't we just ignore both the Catholics and Orthodox and just listen to what the early church says? Were you going to say something, Nolan?
No, I don't think so. I think what you said is perfect. I messaged you. I don't know if that's even worth really saying.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we should mention that. The fathers say pretty much the only people that we know for sure go straight to paradise and who don't have to go through any purgatorial fire are martyrs because they atone for their own sins.
So I have another question now. I'm reading this quote from under the Justin Martyr of the Dialogue of Trypho, chapter 5. In this context of where he's asking, where you have it highlighted, he says, "What then? The souls of the pious men remain in a better place, while those of the unjust and wicked are in a worse, waiting for time of judgment." Is he asking that, or is he telling that?
He's telling it.
Have appeared or never know.
Yeah, it's based on the Gospel of Luke, what Jesus says. That when the soul dies, some are in a happier place and some are in a worse place, waiting for the time of judgment. But the final judgment
Do
is
we have
worse.
do we have a purgatory section in the dictionary?
We have this section called Souls in Hades. It has some sections on purgatory, but just it's generally a place. It's a bunch of quotes to show people what the early church says about souls going to Hades, not going to heaven,
I
the
see.
righteous souls.
Do we do you have like the stuff that they say about the baptism of fire in that section?
Yeah, but we decided not to separate them, at least for now, because they're so intermingled together, the purgatory quotes with the location of souls after death.
Luke, if you can make an entry on that topic, because I forgot how to do an entry and all that, and um, how to put it so it appears on the website. If you do that, I can hop on my computer and just copy things over. Because I spent like a week or two just finding as much as I could. I went on like Patrologia Latina just to get some more that that usually aren't even
On purgatory?
quoted by. Yeah.
Well, that'd be great.
Yeah, so if you could have it available there and just have it empty, I'll go on there and just put it over. I have like dozens. Like it's it's a lot.
Well, you might as well just add it to this section right here that I posted. Are you okay with doing that?
Well, yeah, but at the same time, I think if there was someone who wanted on on the specific subject, then I think having something separate would be useful as well.
Just make a section at the bottom just called purgatory and throw them all in there.
All right.
It's good to have them all in one spot.
Hey, Luke.
Yes, I was just about to ask you, John, what do you think about that short exchange? You can see I haven't started attacking. I'm just asking him questions. What do you think about the
Yeah.
exchange?
Well, not. No, I don't know. Like, you guys haven't really talked about the fathers too much, like, yet. It's just basic talk right now. This is gonna be a long discussion. Like, it's gonna take very long because of time zones.
Yes. Were you going to ask me about anything else? Nolan is here too. He is just as knowledgeable, so we'll both answer your questions.
Well, wait. Before I do, I have a question. I see you guys cite Clementine homilies a lot. Do you guys still hold that as somewhat authoritative, like some parts of it?
Well, this is what happened. According to church history, Clement of Rome wrote 10 books, 10 volumes that he sent to James. And these books they went by various names, such as the Travels of Peter, or sometimes they were called the Recognitions of Clement, based on a certain event in the story where he recognizes somebody. So the Recognitions, or the Travels of Peter, is a book that's attested to before Nicaea and after Nicaea, which is more than you can say about a lot of books that these Cathodox hold in such high esteem and claim to be very early. But we know from Rufinus and Jerome and Epiphanius and others that these books were corrupted by a group called the Ebionites. Epiphanius says that they inserted and corrupted many things. So we know Recognitions was messed up, and so it is no surprise that when we find manuscripts of Recognitions, we find multiple versions. And we currently have two versions. One called Recognitions, which we get from a Latin translation, translated from the Greek, made by Rufinus. He made that translation, and we even have his preface connected to the Latin version. That's where we get our Recognitions. Then there's the homilies. Now, Rufinus, when he gave his version, which is separate from homilies, because homilies is definitely a corrupted version. Maybe there are multiple corrupted versions, but we can at least say homilies is very obviously corrupted. It has a bunch of crazy stuff in it. The ones that always stand out to me are when Peter is talking about Adam and is saying, oh, Adam never actually committed a sin. And when he says that God doesn't...
Satan.
Oh, yeah, and that God accidentally made Satan by mixing two things together, two elements, and oops, accidentally just made an evil angel. And he says, when it says that God dwells in a pillar of cloud, he says, that's not true, because the Bible says he dwells in unapproachable light, so he would never dwell in a cloud. It's just weird stuff with Peter just rewriting the Bible in the homilies version of Recognitions. By the way, recognitions and homilies are almost word for word the same for the entire thing from beginning to end. It's just that homilies has added sections. Very, very weird stuff. Some of it seems harmless, but some of it's weird. Now, you may be saying, well, why would you ever quote from homilies? Why wouldn't you only quote from recognitions? That's a reasonable question. The answer is, Rufinus, when he made his translation that he said is not a corrupted version, he said his version is good, he did say there are some sections that he did not translate. And he says, the reason I didn't translate them isn't because I think they're heretical, it's because they are just so difficult to translate. And he said there were entire sections where they are talking about very deep subject matters, and he was asked to make the translation quickly for somebody. And he said, I don't want to do disservice by doing a quick translation of something where they are using very deep and specific theological terms. I don't want to misrepresent something. So he said, because I'm in a hurry, there are just some sections of the book I'm going to skip. And he said, I'm making an abbreviated version of recognitions. So it is possible that in the homilies, which has some longer sections than recognitions, some of those sections are not actually inserted by heretics. They are part of the original, but they were just not quoted. They're not translated, by Rufinus. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So in any harmless section where we just have something more in the homilies than in recognitions, we'll quote from it. But obviously, if it's something heretical, well, we wouldn't even bother quoting from it. We're only quoting things...
Or something completely alone, something all by itself.
Yeah, like a doctrine that no other church father teaches. But what we're looking for when we're putting quotes on the website are a repeated pattern of teaching on a certain subject that you hear all the church fathers saying.
All right. Well, give me a second.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, Ben.
So I was reading are you familiar with the History of the Christian Church by Philip Schaff?
No, but we all know Philip Schaff.
Okay, so I know he was a German Reformed theologian. So it looks interesting enough to glean over it one day, but he made the assertion. I was reading the footnotes for the because about the Ante-Nicene set, and so in the I'm trying to read all the footnotes to gather all the information, and they cite Philip Schaff saying that he's asserting that it's definitely obviously a pseudo pseudo authorship, and confusing Flavius Clement, the cousin of Domitian. Have you heard that before?
For the recognitions of Clement?
Yes.
Well, that's definitely... are you sure he says that about recognitions?
Well, he's German. He definitely would. The Germans are largely, and I'm saying this as a German, by the way, I hate the Germans. The Germans were some of the worst people with their conspiracy theories, especially around that time frame. I don't know what they were eating, what was in the water over there, but they're the same people that came up with any kind of theory that you've ever heard about the Gospels, any outlandish, crazy theory that's from a German. They've come up with the most ridiculous things. We're content to agree with Rufinus, basically. It's as simple as that. And so it's definitely Clement is obviously Clement in the story. It's not any other Clement.
Ben,
I can send you the paragraph, because I found it in. They cite the History of the Christian Church, where Philip Schaff says it's Flavius Clement, who became a Christian, was executed by his own cousin, the Domitian, who was the emperor at the time. I think emperor. And anyway, it was. I didn't know if you were able to speak more on that, why somebody would say that.
I have no idea. I've never heard of somebody talking about that with a book, The Recognitions of Clement, but I have heard the theory that the house of Clement that has the name of Flavius Clemens is not the real Clement of Rome, but was a different Clement. I've only heard that in regard to his house, though. I don't know what that has to do with recognitions. So I'd like to see that quote. But not that we really care. If I ever hear something weird, I just like to be familiar with the weird thing, the bizarre, stupid thing they say. But have you seen the video we made about recognitions of Clement, where we made a whole video defending it?
I may have, but I've been busy reading it right now, so I want to get through it first before I do that, because it'll make more sense to me or for me.
Not necessarily, because it's a nice little preface thing. It's not necessarily a summary of it.
Okay. Could you link that for me?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, we give all the quotes. Well, we gave some. I mean, we found more since then, but we just of the church fathers talking about it, saying there was a legitimate book written by Clement, but they were aware of it. They were aware that this book did exist in the churches, that it was highly regarded, but then the whole reason why it was corrupted, by the Ebionites, who denied Jesus' divinity and had a bunch of other heresies, was because they knew this book was reputable. It was a book being read in the churches. They wouldn't take a book and corrupt it and add things to it if it was a book that nobody regarded as authentic, but they would take a book and corrupt it if it was being read in the churches, and if it was written by an actual disciple of Clement, and if it had teachings of Peter. That would be your best possible book to corrupt, because people would take it, their false teachings, the Ebionites' false teachings, as if it had the authority of Peter behind it.
Right. Okay.
You guys had updated this article, didn't you, Luke?
Oh,
with
yes.
everything that
Oh,
Nico and Brian also found. Okay, cool. Yeah, there's a lot more in the art. I posted the link to the article as well, Ben, just because of the fact that the article was updated and includes some more sources than the video actually did, which we found after the video was made.
Mm-hmm. Here are two statements from Epiphanius about it. Look at this part, Ben. I'll read it to you. Epiphanius, when talking about recognitions, which he quotes from a few times in his book against heresies, Epiphanius, writing in the late 300s, says, "But they, the Ebionites, use certain other books as well, supposedly the so-called Travels of Peter, written by Clement, though they corrupt their contents, while leaving a few genuine passages. In the Travels, they have changed everything to suit themselves and slandered Peter in many ways." So some people, these crazy so-called scholars, they will say, "Ha, this proves this book is a total forgery because they say it's corrupted." Yeah, but how could it be corrupted unless it were genuine at first? That's why he says, they've changed everything to suit themselves and that they leave a few genuine passages. That's implying that there was a version of this book that was not corrupted. And Rufinus has read the whole thing. Rufinus makes a defense of it. And he was even requested by some other bishops who asked him, hey, they said, "Rufinus, do you have a copy of Recognitions that is not corrupted? Because we have been dealing with a bunch of fake copies circulating and people are afraid to read it." And Rufinus said, "I do have a version of it. I even have the original Greek, and I will make a translation into Latin so that you guys can read it." And he says, yes, receive Clement, in a different garb, in a Roman dress, because he's translated into Latin now. And Rufinus completely believes that it is written by Clement. And he's in the 300s. And then Origen, writing in either the late 100s or 200s, also says the same thing. This is Clement. And he recounts content from book 10. So he had all 10 books for sure. That's really convenient, by the way. Really wonderful that he quotes from book 10, as Brian points out, because it means he had the whole book. He has the entire 10 books that we have. And he quotes it word for word. It matches our version word for word. And somebody even earlier than Origen, named Bardesanes, he quotes from Recognitions in the 100s. So it is an extremely ancient book. Any website like Wikipedia saying, this book was written in the 300s, that is just utter nonsense. How can anybody get away with calling themselves a scholar when we know people are quoting from this book in either the late 100s or 200s?
Yeah. And we talked about this before, that and this is going to come off really naive, but I mean, if it agrees, you cannot throw the whole. You can't throw, and I don't like.
Oh, you cut out for a second there, Ben.
I can't. I don't like. You can't debate.
We'll give it. It's cutting out a little bit, Ben. Here, you might have to say it again, but it's okay. Just let us know if it sounds better on your end.
I don't know.
There we go. It's better. It's good. Could you say that again?
No, I was just going to say that we talked about this before. Can you still hear me?
Yep, you sound good now.
Okay, so because it agrees with the sentiment of the early church, and so we talked about this before. And this is not an argument in terms of arguing its authenticity. This is not an argument to be made, but it we talked about it being, if it was a forgery, it'd be a righteous imposter. It would make no sense. That, I mean, I'm not saying that that's not an argument in favor of it, but they too often throw it out because they can't authenticate its author based on an error-filled investigation
Mm-hmm.
to begin with.
We completely agree. Since it is in agreement with the rest of the church fathers, and it's such a wonderful book. I mean, who could deny the vast wisdom of this book, the edifying, enlightening, just spiritually educational content of this book? Yeah, it's the fact that it's completely in agreement with the rest of the church fathers is all the more reason why we accept it and cherish it, because we're looking for that universal teaching. And the fact is, we even have church fathers corroborating it is written by Clement. So we just have the mindset of listening to the early church. We love the early church's testimony. We trust the early church in the same way that we would trust a family member who is a witness to something. If our family member said, "No, I'm telling you, I saw it. I am a witness to it. And you know I'm trustworthy because you know I'm not a liar." I would say, "Yes, I do trust you, Dad or Grandpa or Mom, because I know your reputation." So yes, that's our mindset about it.
Yeah.
Hey, Luke.
Yes.
So I did receive my friend Leon. Wait, sorry. He did send me, like, he tried to make an argument for icon veneration with this quote. I'll send it here.
I
Right.
see. Yes, post it for me. I'd like to hear. I've never heard a good argument. This might be the first time.
So it doesn't seem like much, but basically he's trying to argue that Origin says that idolatry is shaped by the soul. So if you have like the right intention going into veneration of icons, then it's not really bad. That's what his argument was.
And let's read Origen's message here. Origen says, "An idol is one thing and a likeness another. For example, a likeness is if someone makes a fish or a four-footed animal or a wild beast, either by carving or by painting. It is a likeness. But an idol is what a forming soul makes from things that do not exist as original prototypes, such as a mixed animal, part man and part horse." Yes, we've read
Right.
many church fathers say this. We agree with this. That's the
What
traditional.
the distinction of what an idol is, basically, is the point.
Yes, we understand that an idol, that is the traditional definition of an idol. Idol or idolatry comes from two things. It would be idol, which comes from eidolon, a word that just means form or formling. So it's just giving a form, a physical form to something. And they usually mean something imaginary when they say a formling. And then idolatry comes from latreia, which means service, doing some kind of spiritual service, like offering sacrifices. So idolatry means doing spiritual services to a form. So although we know traditionally the form is something imaginary, we also know that the church fathers, including Origen, call any kind of service to any kind of statue idolatry. And especially that love of wealth, that love of mammon, is called idolatry even by the Apostle Paul, when he says that greed, the love of money, the love of gold, is idolatry. So whenever anybody worships and serves their created things, especially forms of things like statues, that is idolatry. But if he really wants...
Well, Luke, in this being on Exodus, Origen is saying this because, of course, like the command is both, you cannot worship and serve an idol or a likeness.
Yes.
It's both.
They will all say that if you bow down to any image, you are committing a very great sin, and they would all classify as idolatry, whether it is an image of a thing that really exists or something fake. I can show you a lot of quotes, but astonishing that any of them will quote Origen. Just unbelievable, but I'm glad. I mean, I'm not upset. I'm happy. So let's read some Origen on image veneration and see if he approves of it. Have you already seen all the quotes, though, John, the Syrian?
Mm-hmm.
You've already seen what Origen says, so, I mean, you know how absurd that is. What's the point of quoting that? But see, they just did this the other day on another server. Somebody did this. Let me show you real quick here. On here. See up here, somebody says, I've got Origen. He says, from this book, Against Celsus, Book 7, Chapter 62. He says, Origen says this in support of images. He says, the image of God is found in the Son, who is the firstborn of all creation, and visible representations can be useful to lift the mind towards spiritual realities. He goes, paraphrased summary of the argument. So this is not an actual quote of Origen. I just said, there's no way you're actually quoting Origen, your worst enemy. I mean, all the church fathers are your enemies, but Origen might be one of your very worst, especially because they condemn him as a heretic. So that's also really weird that they're quoting Origen. But okay, let's do it. Let's do Against Celsus, Book 7.
Well, yeah, that was definitely GPT.
Yeah, I don't know where this came from, guys. The idea of quoting Origen in favor of image veneration, but you saw us make a video in response to that, right? Everybody seen that video? Right? Everybody? Yeah. I don't.
It.
What, Nolan?
What's the video called?
Nolan, put the link in the description, will you?
I'll put the link in the description for you.
Thank you. But I mean, just look at this. Look at this. Look, here's chapter 62 with this kid just quoted here. Origen in support of image veneration. Origen is refuting Celsus, a pagan critic. And what is Celsus' main charge against Christians? What's he attacking them for? Well, it's that they don't worship any images. He said, let us see now what Celsus says next. Celsus says, let us pass on to another point. They, the Christians, cannot tolerate temples, altars, or images. In this, they are like the Scythians, the nomadic tribe of Libya, the Syrians who worship no god. So in other words, Celsus is saying, if they don't worship images, then it's as if they don't even worship any god. He says, and they're like some of the other more of the most barbarous and impious nations in the world. And he says that the Persians hold the same notions as shown by Herodotus, blah, blah, blah. So he's just saying these Christians are weird. They don't have images. He says, he certainly plainly enough, this is Celsus saying, Herodotus plainly enough implies that it's a foolish thing for a man to offer prayers to images while he knows not who the gods and heroes are, blah, 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 blah. So he goes down here. And here is one of the things that our boy Celsus says, which I actually have right here. I actually have all of this already highlighted if you guys want to see it on the website. But Celsus says, but as for them, they, the Christians, go further and despise without exception all images. This is in chapter 62, guys. This is in chapter 62. That's what this kid quotes. And he thinks, well this is just a quote of Celsus saying Christians despise all images without exception? Why in the world are you quoting this? What kind of insanity compelled a man to put this on a website or think that this supports images? I don't know. Some demon, but I mean, I appreciate the stupidity of the demon. Yeah, Origen, though, is your worst enemy when it comes to image veneration. Let me read some of these purple sections. On this website, guys, when you see red, that's really good context, or good content usually being used for context, but the really juicy parts, the best parts, are the purple parts. So if you see something purple, that's like something that you should copy and paste, because that little section by itself will completely annihilate, all by itself, any notion of image veneration. Are you still there, Nolan?
Yeah.
Cool. By the way, do you want to say anything, or do you want to talk about anything tonight?
No, I didn't have anything in mind.
All right, but if I bore you, you got to tell me, because I know you get bored if I talk too much.
It was Mikey that had to go.
Oh, yeah. Mikey, what'd you want to say? Oh, Mikey left?
No, he's the one that had to go. That's why you thought I was the one that left?
Oh, whenever I hear that sound, I always am afraid it's you leaving me.
Yeah.
Okay, can you stand one quote, Nolan? All right, here. He says, for although a perverted view of things, with the aid of much instruction to the same effect, has been able to implant in the minds of the multitude the belief that images are gods, and that things made of gold and silver and ivory and stone are deserving of worship, and he's talking about bowing, yet common sense forbids the supposition that God is at all a piece of corruptible matter or is honored when made to assume by men a form embodied in dead matter, fashioned according to the same image or symbol of his appearance. So do you see this part? He says, common sense forbids you to suppose that God would be honored by you making him assume a form of men in dead matter. See, guys, it was dishonorable enough for Jesus to assume the form of a man in living matter. Every church father agrees with that Jesus was humiliated by becoming a human. And yet now you want to depict him not even as living matter, but as dead matter on a picture? You think that's how you honor God? And you think Origen or any church father agrees with that? Origen says, for in our judgment, all are intoxicated who address themselves to inanimate objects as if to God. And why do I say intoxicated? Insane would be the more appropriate word for those who hasten to temples and worship images or animals as divinities. And they too are not less insane who think that images fashioned by men of worthless and sometimes most wicked character confer any honor upon genuine divinities. So he says, you're insane if you think images confer any honor upon genuine divinities. So he's not just talking about fake divinities. He's saying, no, images fashioned by men don't even confer honor upon genuine divinities. And he has some killer statements, such as the ones that I quoted earlier. He says, while we, on the other hand, deem... Oh, yeah, you read this part. You're uninstructed. Did I read this section, though? Yes. He says, while we, on the other hand, deem those to be uninstructed who are not ashamed to address supplications to inanimate objects... Yes. To inanimate objects and call upon those for health that have no strength, and to ask the dead for life, and to entreat the helpless for assistance. And although some may say that these objects are not gods, but only imitations and symbols of real divinities, nevertheless, these very individuals, these Cathodox, in imagining that the hands of low mechanics can frame imitations of divinity, are uninstructed and servile and ignorant. So notice he doesn't just talk about pagan gods. He says, no, there's no such thing as making a picture that can be an imitation or symbol of a real divinity. That's not a Christian concept. We don't make imitations and symbols of the real divinity. And look at this. Here's an amazing section, Nolan. I forgot about this part where Origen says, he quotes Celsus. Celsus says, let them, the Christians, take care. So Celsus is upset that the Christians don't use images. And he says, well, let the Christians take care that they do not contradict themselves. For they say that God made man in his own image and that he gave him a form like to himself. Guys, that's exactly what the Cathodox say. They say, hey, haven't you heard that God made man in his image? So God does have an image. That's exactly the pagan argument. He's like, you Christians are contradicting yourselves. God does have an image. I just can't believe that. I forgot Celsus said that, because that is the Cathodox argument. And of course, the image of God is not a visible or physical thing. All the church fathers explain.
Wait, Luke.
Yes.
Wait, so but aren't bodies like, I'm sorry, like people after death, their souls are disunited with their bodies. But don't the fathers still like say they've like they would like give veneration to the bodies? Like what's the answer to that?
Where does any church father say that they bow down to bodies? It's one thing to bow down to bodies and burn incense to bodies, but it's another just to bury the body. Understand that that body is still owned by the person who died. It's something that belongs to them. Just like if you were to leave your house, to use a perfect analogy, if you were going to go on a journey and you said to your friends, hey, I'm going to leave my house. Will you take care of my house in my absence? And they said, of course, we'll keep it, nice and clean, and we'll make sure no robbers break in and mess it up or take possession of it. See, you leave and you're coming back after some time to retake possession of your house. And just because you're separated from it doesn't mean it doesn't belong to you. We see a body the same way, that if one of our brothers or sisters dies, we take care of their body and we bury it. That's how we show honor to them. But we're not going to bow down to it and burn incense to it. And there is no church father for the first 300 years of church history, or even 400 years of history, who says that we ought to be putting bodies on display, as the Catholics and Orthodox do, or bowing down to bodies, or burning incense to bodies, or to images of bodies. Does that make sense?
So I see the bodies have a connection to the soul, but the images don't at all.
Right. An image has no connection to the soul whatsoever, but a body does. A body is owned by the soul. You get it? And see, we have a section here on the website called, where is it? Oh yeah, I put it near the top recently. I moved it because of this wicked doctrine of thinking they honor saints by putting them on display. That is just sick. And their favorite quote is this one from the Martyrdom of Polycarp, where they say that after Polycarp died, they say they took up his bones, which were more valuable than precious stones and finer than refined gold, and they laid his bones in a suitable place. So what they imagine that's like putting them on display somewhere. But it doesn't say that they put them on display. If you lay someone to rest, if I say, and I took his body and I laid it to rest, what does that mean? I buried it. Exactly. Everybody knows that. They buried his body. And they did celebrate the birthday of his martyrdom. When they say birthday, they just mean the day. That's something Christians have always done. They have celebrated the day when one of their brothers or sisters was martyred. And they said yes, that they would go and gather themselves and they would celebrate his martyrdom. But they wouldn't exhume his body and put it on display. That would be so dishonorable. That would be insulting. But the Cathodox love to put dead bodies on display, which is forbidden. And that's why we put all these quotes here from all the church fathers saying that that is a very serious sin to expose bodies, and that it is an obligation of all Christians to bury bodies. Yes. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We don't expose bodies. Origen, by the way, on images, here's one of his best one. Everybody knows this is his best line. He says, "It is not possible at the same time to know God and to address prayers to images." Why doesn't he ever make an exception for the Christian images if they're actually doing that to Christian images?
Yeah, and also Origen also says like he rejects Christians reject all images. Not like he didn't even say idols. He just said all images.
Yes. Moreover, we do not imagine that these images are representations of God, for they cannot represent a being who is invisible and incorporeal. They can't. People say, but what about Jesus? They don't understand it. Jesus' physical body is not a representation of God. How can a body represent something? Do the scriptures say, and Jesus' body was a representation of God? It was a vessel. It says he was in a veil, but a veil is an obstacle. It's not a representation. Would I say like a woman's veil is a representation of her body? No, it's an impediment. It's a covering to her body. I mean, it is true that it's all that we see, and when Christ came, that was all we could see with our eyes. But there's more to a person than their body. And that body that Christ once had when he walked the earth, it's not here anymore. That body's been totally transformed. His body is pure light now. Jesus gave them a glimpse of what his body would look like after the resurrection. At the transfiguration, when it says his face turned bright as the sun and his clothes as white as, any launderer could make them. When he turned bright as the sun, that was a picture of what his body was going to look like at the resurrection. And it's also a picture of what we will look like and what will be. It says we're going to have God's glory. You're going to be shining so bright, you're going to be bright as the sun. You're not going to have physical flesh anymore with skin cells, and all this other nonsense, all of your organs and intestines digesting food and stuff. You're not going to have that stuff. It's not going to exist. That's why Paul, when he's talking about the resurrection, he says, just as star differs from star in glory, so will it be in the resurrection. He says we're going to be like the stars. We're going to be like the sun and the moon. We're going to be shining. We're not just going to be flesh and blood. But they want to remember Christ according to his flesh, in total contradiction of the Apostle Paul. remember which
Yeah.
one I'm. Go ahead, Noel.
Well, what do you think, John? Do you feel satisfied with that? What do you think of like that excerpt from Origin that this guy sent you? I mean, what are your thoughts about that?
Well, like my thoughts on it is that like it doesn't really prove anything. He's just talking about like what a likeness is and then what an idol is. But
And
I want clarification.
yeah. And what was his this guy's argument was like that he was trying to say that like okay, well see we're not guilty of idolatry. Was that his point?
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
there's
he
a
said that.
difference.
Yeah, he said that because idolatry is dependent on the soul, so like an intention basically. So when one like venerates the icon, the intention of honoring like the person in it, it's not like that's what his argument was.
But
It's
you
not
can
idol.
see in this excerpt that Origin isn't talking about anything like that. He's just explaining in the command, in the Ten Commandments, why God says that both an idol and a likeness cannot be made insofar as for worship and being served. That's what the command is. And so he's explaining, Origin is explaining. They usually in all their commentaries, anytime they talk about that verse, they'll explain that because that's a question that somebody would have, like why are there these two commands, one for idol, one for likeness? It's because there is a difference between the two.
Yeah.
We wouldn't typically. I think we've talked about this a couple times. Like the the Cathodox are not necessarily like always guilty of like idolatry because like they're not depicting idols in like the classic sense of the word as we were talking about earlier.
But in the other sense,
But
they are.
Yeah, but the main thing is just that like both are not allowed, even if it's not an idol, even if it is just a likeness. You're not. The command says you're not allowed to bow down to that either.
Mhm. I also I also saw like Jay Dyer like on his defense on icons. He also said he has this quote from Cyril, but I'm having a hard time like finding the source of it. I'll send it right now.
Is it the one commentary on Psalms 113/115?
Like, I'm having a hard time finding it right now to verify it.
Oh, even to find it, you don't have it.
But yeah, I found the Latin like land. I think this might be Greek also.
Yeah, we could just
This
translate
is
it.
Latin, Greek.
There should always be a
Like,
citation. Don't accept any quotes unless they've got a citation. Brian, I don't think I have this quote from Origin on Job. Did you find this recently?
I found that back in February, and I added you.
Whoopsie daisy. I need to make sure I'm more on top of this. I really thought I had added everything you added, but it is also hard to keep up with you. No, that's no excuse. I love every quote you post, so I feel really bad that I missed this. This is unacceptable. I'm going to scroll down. We're going to add this right now. I am sorry.
Your sins are forgiven.
Thank you.
This is what we call confession to a priest. I mean,
Hey, which volume in Patrologia Graeca is Origen's homilies on Job?
I think it's 11 or 12. ChatGTP should have it down. Actually, here, if I go on my computer, I could probably find it because I remember saving a quote from
Claims it's 17.
homilies on.
We don't
Let me
know if
look. Hold
that's
on.
real.
No, I'm going to check it.
No, it's real. I went on there. Like it's like at the very beginning of it.
No, what ChatGPT says that's where
Oh,
it
I see.
is.
We're going to double check.
Yeah. Homilies on Job. Do I have it here? J.
Yeah, I see it here.
I can't tell you exactly what line. Oh, at the very beginning. the very beginning. If you can find out like the very first page, it's like the very first sentence. So you can easily find out the column. If you go
No,
to the
I don't need
page.
the column. Just the volume is fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're not sure. They're
You
not for
found out?
sure that it's Origin, but yeah, we're still adding it. It's very possibly his. Yeah, I've got it, Nolan. Do you see my screen? Am I sharing screens?
You are.
Yeah.
I thought they were sure. It's just the stuff that they have from the Katina, I thought. Right?
It is authentic though. This one, from everything I've seen on it, it just isn't really translated. I did translate it, but it's not really well known.
I don't
I
think
think
there's
from-
that much, is there?
There's a. It's not too long, but it's not
Yeah.
like super long either. It's. I can't tell you. I haven't even read through the complete thing like in one sitting.
Hmm. Yeah. There it is. Origin annotations on
Yeah.
Job.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. It should be.
It's the very beginning.
Oh. No. But look at the chapter though. Go back. I think there's two versions. There's two versions of
Mm-hmm.
Origin's commentary on Job. So there's another one.
Yeah, I saw it. It's on page
Yeah,
300
it's the
and
other
something.
one.
Oh, it is the other one?
It's the other one.
The other one is on page 371. This one?
Oh, wait, I'm sorry. Give me one moment, Luke. I will find it.
Well, whatever the case, it's volume 17. So
Maybe.
it is. It's volume 17. We'll just add this for now.
Hey, Luke.
Yes, who is that?
Isaiah.
Isaiah.
Oh, Isaiah. So nice to hear from you.
Yep. How's it going?
It is very, very nice.
That's good. That's good. Wait here. Let me leave and join back. I think something's up with my Wi-Fi.
Anyway, to quote Origin and quote in favor of images, it's not only, I mean, it's not just suicide. It's like a donation to us to do that.
Wi-Fi.
To just take the sword and just drive it through your own chest at the beginning of a debate is a courtesy rarely seen. But the Cathodox have been doing it a lot lately.
Speaking of debates, I was gonna ask if I can get like a little quiz or something, if you don't mind.
I don't know if I'm capable.
Right? You know this stuff at the back of your hand, but if you want to do it, it's cool. I ain't tripping. How you doing, Nolan?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing good. Better that I can be here with brothers now. For like the past 3 days, it's pretty much like no calls. Like yeah, being here reading, but I'm just reading. Like we didn't have like an actual call, so I'm just over here a little lonely.
Luke,
But pretty good.
you can test his knowledge on something, I'm sure.
Yeah, I was
It
thinking
doesn't
like
have to be a debate. Test him in some way. Give him something tricky.
What is the image of God, Isaiah?
Mansell.
Mantle?
Man's
Mansell.
soul.
Oh, I thought you were like mantling, like clambering over this one. You're like, I'm going to jump over that one. Yes, it is man's soul. Be more specific. Tell me more. Tell me about God's image. Is God's image, I mean, who is there, are all human beings God's image?
No. So the people who represent God's likeness and have the image of God bore about in their soul are the men who have a good spirit and a pure spirit and a good soul. That's what the Father said, such as Peter and recognitions.
Yep, they would say the more you resemble God in all of God's good traits, all of his inherent righteous personality traits, the more you resemble him, the more you have the image of God. But that when Satan introduced sin in human beings, the image of God has been gradually becoming degraded, and we've fallen away from that image, and we barely resemble God at all, because resembling God isn't something we do physically, it's something that we do spiritually. Now, I want you to know something else, Isaiah. The image of God is Jesus. He is the perfect image of God because he's a perfect duplicate of the Father. However, we are different. We are not the actual, just flat out image of God, but we are creatures made in the image of God. So none of us would claim to just be the image of God, but we would claim to be made in God's image after Christ, who is the actual literal image of God, and that we fashion ourselves through God's help back into a very close resemblance to Christ. But we are the ones who are fashioned, whereas Christ is the natural image. You can kind of think of it as the difference between having having a biological child, or even looking at yourself in the mirror, having something that's natural and something that's not man-made, compared to constructing something. We were actually constructed, whereas Christ is a natural image. Get it?
Yes.
Petrologia number 12, thank you.
Yeah, similarly, like Origin and against Celsus, I believe it's book 8, he talks about how we raise up spiritual statutes when we imitate Christ in our virtues.
Yes, exactly.
Luke, since you're on the image of God topic, so me and Adriano, we were talking about like what what because remember those quotes that I sent you about like what Tertullian says about the soul sharing, you know, the same substance with God. So me and Adriana were talking about that stuff, and we were, we tr- and the question that Adriana had was like, well, how could man have fallen, right? But I found Tertullian answers that question, and we kind of resolved it. But something, I guess, a question that came up was he made this little diagram here. Let me send it. So, a question that came up was, well, what the spirit of God, right? When it says that man is made in the spirit of God, and there is this incorruptible part in man, which that spirit is from God, right? So the question that Adriano had was, is the soul in the spirit of God as well, or is it just like an image of God, or is it just like because it has this spirit within it from the Holy Spirit? I I don't think you guys get what I'm saying.
Well, it's very
It,
deep. It's something we should only consult much wiser men on and not do any speculation about. But after
right.
I give my suggestion, Nolan can say what he thinks. But it seems that the spirit is not so much our actual consciousness as it is God's influence in us. So your soul seems to be this blank slate which contains consciousness and memories and thoughts and personality. Whereas the spirit is something that's naturally good, as we all know by now. So the spirit is that part that God extends. He takes he takes some of himself and puts it into a person, or he creates a spirit that is like himself and is always naturally good, whereas the soul is not naturally good. And the soul is where the seat of consciousness is, not in the spirit. It's more just that the soul draws from the spirit, which is like, well, it's called the conscience. It has a voice, it can speak to us, and yet it's not a distinct person from us. It's more just something that we draw from. I'm sure there are many analogies to illustrate that concept. Almost like I could read a
Right.
book and it'll speak, but it's not something you just read. It'll speak independently. And whether the spirit or the soul is that part that's of God's essence, I have no idea. I don't know how many other church fathers say that besides Tertullian, if any. But if you have any quotes, you should add them to the website.
Uh,
But I know that in the sense that the soul is incorporeal, in that way it is more like God. But we must not think of God as if he has an actual invisible essence, as in something you could touch, like in some other dimension. God's essence, to even call it an essence or a substance, is not quite accurate. And we can only think of essence and substance as in different kinds of pieces of elemental matter.
very true.
So we shouldn't think of God as having an essence and then God drew from some of the watery light essence or something and then put it in us. We have to understand these things are completely invisible and intellectual in nature. In the same way that your thoughts are not physical things, God is entirely intellectual, the ultimate intellect, the entire epitome of consciousness and being, something far beyond any physical or visible matter. So we should be careful when we talk about essence or substance and the soul sharing an essence with God. Some people will, the reason why we don't, well, part of the reason we wouldn't recoil at hearing that idea from Tertullian is not just because it's Tertullian, we respect Tertullian, but also because we don't imagine that to share some essence with God means that you are automatically omnipotent or something. I would think of that more in the sense that it's incorporeal. And that
Well,
may be... Go ahead.
he says in another place that it he says that it's not like how like the spirit and Jesus, they're of the same essence. No, he gives the analogy of breeze and wind. Like he says like it's of a lesser divinity.
Mm-hmm.
So he's not saying that. But yeah, obviously these things are way beyond me. I didn't
Exactly.
even want to bring it up,
Well,
honestly.
no, I'm glad you did. It's good for us to have discussion, although we should be cautious about discussing things that are too lofty, even when we are more advanced in our learning. And so how much more should we be cautious if we're new to these things? But I'll mention one other thing, guys. Spirits are still created things. They're incorporeal, but spirits are a far cry from God's divine essence, which comprehends and all things universally and exists simultaneously everywhere and even beyond the physical realm. Spirits are different from that because they're not omnipresent. A spirit does not exist everywhere at once, but only in one location at once. So in that way, our souls and our spirits are very much created things existing in another dimension and being invisible, of course, and being impossible to touch, but still you can see how that's different from God. God exists everywhere all at once, and yet even that shouldn't be seen as like he's some big object that's invisible, but just being beyond all physical location, but being intellectual. Whereas our souls always view things from a certain perspective in one location at a time, even in Hades. And Yvonne, it's good to see you too in here. What time is it for you guys? Is it 10:30 for you?
Yeah.
You guys are trying to go to bed at a better time, and I'm sorry we're having it so late, but it's good to see you guys, and I hope you will still go to bed right after this. What do you think is a good topic to talk about with them, Nolan? Or guys, what are some things that you've been talking about if Nolan doesn't have any?
Yes, it's that.
Sure. Surely there must be.
Well, me and Adriano, we were talking about something else.
What else?
You know, like on Christian YouTube right now, the question is, they're asking, oh, do Christians and Muslims and, people from other religions, do they have the same God? I was of the opinion that no, we don't have the same God. There's a quote from Tertullian. I sent two quotes actually. Um, one that one that's affirming that the soul intrinsically knows about its creator, but and I sent another quote, because people will say, "Oh, goodbye," which is like, "Oh, God is good," like they attesting that God exists. But and then I sent another quote because if someone is of the other opinion and they hear that quote from Tertullian, they might be inclined to say, "Oh, yeah, I agree with that." So they would have to accept the other quote from Tertullian in his On Baptism, where he says that no, these people, they have different gods than us because they're
Right.
heretics.
That was the first one that I thought of. Yeah, there's like a golden mean there where it's like Paul also says that like, creation testifies to the divinity, the God, that there is a God, and like people are somewhat conscious of him to a degree, but also that these people of other religions do have a different God than we do.
Yes.
It's both.
Right.
You have to think of the demons and the devil as always contending and competing to steal. Oh, go ahead, Brian.
Hello?
I'm sorry. It was delayed for you. Go ahead. I can say it later.
Oh, I was sorry. I was just saying, Raheem, have you ever seen what the Quran or what Islamic sources, how they depict Allah? Like he has like
No,
two right hands. He has like a huge shin. It's like it's like a deformed deity. Like it makes no sense the way the Quran describes him. It's so retarded. So just by that, I think it's like, yeah, how can that be the same God anyways? Because according to their sources, Allah actually has body parts and like two right hands and like two shins or something. It's so weird.
Well, I don't know. I don't Raheem, like I don't follow any of that. Is that you said that's what they're talking about right now?
I mean, yeah, that's what they're talking about
In
because,
the
like,
same
what
way,
the Catholics
the
say.
way that Tertullian, you take that quote from Tertullian, in the same way that Tertullian says something like that, and other fathers say a similar thing, I would extend that also to these people, likewise, like these people who claim to be Christians, who put on the name of Christian, but don't actually think like Christians. They don't act like Christians. They have like a completely different God than we do. They have a fake antichrist, completely different. They don't believe in the same Christ that we believe in. They don't believe in the divinity, the God the Father that we believe in.
Right.
And
Fundamentally
when you say
wrong.
Christian, this is what's going on with the Christians right now. This is what they're talking. No, this is what the heretics are talking about. The pseudo Christians. I'm not even following any of that.
Right. I loosely followed as well, but yeah, if they say it because how the Catholics they'll say, oh, from the Pope, I think, when he said that every religion is a path to God, say now they have to affirm what the Pope says. Um, so yeah, I think that's how the big spiel started. Another example that I gave was with Elijah and Baal, right? Because I guess their main thing is that they might have a different idea of God, but you know they might worship different gods, but the idea of God is the same, right? But in that little passage from I think it's First Kings, Isaiah he's facing the prophets of Baal or the worshippers of Baal, right? And they go to worship their respective gods.
Mhm.
And what happens is it's proved that, well, the worshippers of Baal, their God is fake, and Elijah's God is the true God. And in the midst of that, he's mocking them and said, "Oh, what's up with your God? It is he doesn't exist. That's what he's saying. It's a false God." So I think that's another example.
Yes, I was.
Well,
Oh, go ahead,
I don't
Owen.
know. I don't know. I don't even know how you guys can like stomach it, to tell you the truth. I mean, these people, I just can't even. I truly cannot. I can't watch any of those videos anymore by anybody on anything, because it's just I mean, it's just infuriating. I mean, these people are talking about like stuff like this. Like, do Muslims have the same God as we do? Should we be cutting our kids' genitalia off? Do you think that's a good idea? It's just like the most like out of left field, like as
Obvious.
far off base as you can possibly imagine. Only the most depraved society would be questioning these things. The mark of a healthy society is like, do you think that the women should be showing their ankles? Do you think that the women should be showing their wrists right now? And we've got other things going on. I mean, the line has been moved so freaking far, and it's just
Like homosexuality, guys. Think about how much you degrade yourself talking about abortion. Well, I've been watching a lot of anti-abortion videos, or anti-homosexuality, anti-transgenderism. Like, what in the world are you watching? Even you degrade yourselves by talking about such things or engaging in any serious conversation of that caliber.
yes.
And you
The
have to.
fathers don't talk about it that much. They do have, because abortion was technically a thing, as we've talked about it before. They do condemn abortion, but if you stack all of everything that they have to say about it, it's not that much, and it's just because it's like only a sick freak would kill their offspring. I mean, you're talking about the most idiotic, savage, brainless, brutal kind of person that would kill their own offspring like that.
Right.
It's not even what they're talking about. So they're talking about other things because there's like a higher standard.
Right. I guess the reason why, I mean, as well, as I said, I follow these things loosely. The reason why, like, I would even, watch these videos is because I want to see, like, all right, what can I expect, if I ever encounter these people in an argument, of course.
Well, I would say this, as I was going to say earlier, Satan's goal is to take everything true, everything real, and twist it. And any worship that was meant to go to God, he redirects to himself. He steals it. That's the goal. Don't think that you can worship a god of a heretical sect and think that it's still somehow magically being rerouted to God, even though you believe lies about him. You have to understand the full meaning of an antichrist. An antichrist is not just a living human walking around claiming to be Christ. The antichrist, guys, is also a spirit. Remember, John says the spirit of the antichrist is in the world. He says already there are many antichrists. And that is not just talking about people. It's talking about an invented version of Christ that's not real, and people worship him. But it's a demon behind that version of Christ. It's not
And
the
it's
real.
the Gnostic one.
Yes.
In that case, he's talking about the Gnostic version of Christ. And it's because that Gnostic version of Christ, although it's very fake, it's also like, it still kind of looks like Christ. That remember this, guys, in some translations, older translations will render that whenever Christ talks about Antichrist. Sometimes they'll render it pseudo. And I think in some ways that might be a little bit better, but anti is also fine just as long as you understand what the meaning of the word is. And it just has to do with like, it can have to do with something that's similar. We talked about that at the beginning of the video I did like over a year ago now on when we were reading Hippolytus on the Antichrist. And I talked a lot about that word anti, but it really just means like pseudo, it doesn't necessarily have to mean pseudo. It's like up against, right? So it's like kind of like close. It's like similar. In a lot of ways, it can be very similar. So like just because there's like overlap, like, well, they still have some things. In a lot of ways, that's worse because it's like, oh, the coin looks more real, but it's still a fake coin, and the more real that the fake coin looks doesn't make it any better. And
The more
a lot of
dangerous it is.
cases, that makes it more more insulting.
Dangerous. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Understand the early church, since we're on the topic of image worship, the early church always says that when people bow down to objects, demons take advantage of that. When they see that people venerate objects, demons have the power to go and inhabit objects, and especially these images, these statues that people are so prone to venerate, to bow down to and offer incense to. And so what might seem to you to be a harmless thing, look, all I did was bend my body forward. All I did was burn incense to this object. You don't understand. You're actually worshiping a demon inhabiting that object, and now you've become their slave. Because in God's economy, he has told the demons that if anybody does that to an idol, then the demons gain jurisdiction and authority over that person to torment them and even possess them. It's a very serious thing to offer that kind of worship to a dead thing. You degrade yourself. And Paul says this in 1 Corinthians 10, that he says, what am I saying? That an idol is anything? He says, no, but that the things which Gentiles sacrifice, they sacrifice to demons and not to God. And I don't want you to have fellowship with demons. So he's saying, understand, people aren't just worshiping idols. They're actually demon worshipers. There's never just an idol worshiper. Every idol worshiper is a demon worshiper. And that's even what it says in the scriptures. All the gods of the nations are demons. So no, they can't have the same God. A demon, the whole reason he got somebody to worship an idol is to get them to worship a false god. By the way, Nolan, you may already know this because you are very well studied, but did you know that the name Baal just means Lord? That's the definition of his name. It's just a very generic name. And God worked it out that Israel, which is,
No, I didn't.
it's symbolic and it's a precursor of spiritual Israel, they all worship the Lord. They all worship this Lord. He is a generic Lord. And they're all going to say on Judgment Day, Lord, Lord. But they're Baal worshipers. I even tell my children, when they ask me what happened to so-and-so, my family members who have fallen away into heresy, they say, what's going on with them? And I'll say, they worship Baal now. And somebody might hear me say that, and they might say, Luke, you're lying to your children. You're making them think that your family members actually worship Baal. But no, they do worship the Lord that they invented, a false Lord, an antichrist.
Yeah.
All these things are planned. All these things are symbolic. It was always known from the beginning that so many people in these last times would be Christians. They would be claiming to worship Christ, and they would all be calling Jesus Lord, Lord, but that they would have a fake Lord. There's some great quotes. I may not have ever shown you, Nolan, still on this image of, or on the subject of image worship. There's this one from Gregory of Nyssa. Did I ever show you this one? I think this is, maybe I did, but this is such a cool one. He's refuting these wicked people who say that Jesus is just a creature. And he says, wow, so you think Jesus is a created being? And he says, if you do think that, hear what he says. If you do think that, he says, thus he who severs the Son from the nature of the Father either absolutely disallows the worship of the Son, that he may not worship an alien God, or he's saying, if you say that Jesus is a created being, he says, or you're bowing down before an idol, making a creature and not God the object of his worship, and giving to his idol the name of Christ. So he says, if you say that Jesus is a created being, you've made Jesus an idol. You see how generic this definition of idolatry is, guys? He's saying just worshiping a created being or a created thing is idolatry. Now, if that's true about saying that Christ is a created being, even though you're saying, well, I do believe he's alive, I do believe he created the world, I just think he's a created being. If that's still idolatry, how much more is it to worship something that's not even Christ, but it's just a dead object? If that's not idolatry, how can it be idolatry to worship a living version of Christ and still affirm that he created the world? Obviously, it's much more idolatry to worship a dead object, because if you worship a created thing, even if it's Jesus, that is idolatry. Didymus is the same thing.
That makes a whole lot of sense, Luke.
Yeah, isn't it great?
Because I never thought of it that way. That someone who says that, I mean, of course, okay, I'll just finish my point. Well, someone who believes that Christ is only a creature, like those retarded Unitarians, that's what they call themselves. Like, I never, like, I assume, like, yeah, they worship a false Christ, but I never thought of it as like they're actually being idolaters because they worship a Christ that doesn't even exist.
Yes, and a created being.
That's a different way to view things, and it makes it a whole lot more deep. I'd say.
Yep. They have so many statements like Didymus and so many others all say the same thing about what it means to be the image of God. Like he says, and in a certain way, these heretics, they liken the living and active Word of God to an unmoving image. But in essence and in all things, he is the most perfect and eternal image of the Father, not in form and shape, like a molded or carved, lifeless and unmoving statue, nor in appearance and color, like an artificial and imitative, voiceless image, for these do not naturally, nor in all respects, reveal the original. Those things don't reveal God. But anyway, he says the same thing here that Gregory of Nyssa says at the end here. He just says, and necessarily, the image of the only invisible God is itself invisible, and not the visible man made in the image. Therefore the Son is not like to another. For it is written, who shall be likened to the Lord among the sons of God? Nor is he unlike to his own Father. For I and the Father are one, he says. But those who apply the idea of a created image to him are like Nebuchadnezzar, who commanded a lifeless image made by hands to be worshipped. So he says the same thing Gregory of Nyssa says. Anybody who applies the idea of a created image to Jesus are like Nebuchadnezzar, who told people to worship a big dead statue. He says,
Yeah,
you're,
Luke.
you're idolaters. Yeah, go ahead, John.
Yeah, it's actually convenient like that we're talking about this because this like contrasts with the origin it's like right in like line with the origin quote where he talks about how idols are like when you take something and then you like distort it.
Exactly.
So they're making idols when they distort God.
Exactly. Oh, that's such a good observation, John. That's right. They've made a form. They're creating something that doesn't really exist. That is such a good observation. So it is idolatry, even according to the traditional specific definition, not even just the generic one.
And the anti can also have to do with, like, I posted here, like, this is from David Bentley Hart's New Testament translation, and he gives in his foreword, some of the words and stuff he talks about. He talks about how anti can also be like a word for a substitute. So yeah, if you're like, if you make a substitute for Christ, like not the real Christ, but a substitute, that can also be an antichrist. If that makes sense.
Yes, he says anti in Greek does not necessarily mean opposed to, although it often does. It can also simply indicate equivalence or an antithesis. Yes, not an antagonist of God, but an equal of the gods, or of reciprocity, in the sense of one thing that is exchanged for another, or correspondence, in the way that an antitype corresponds to an original type. Yeah, that's how I've always thought of it too. That you have two things parallel to each other, and one is standing there in place of the other or in competition of the other, and they have a choice between the two. And in many cases, it means a substitute, either in purely benign sense or of a representative. Oh, you messed me up, Nolan. Or a deputy. I see. Oh, did I deafen? What happened? Oh, Evan. I thought you were talking to me. Nice to see everybody. So nice to see so many people in the call tonight. But we don't have to spend all our time on images. We brought this up because you, John, brought it up, and we're happy to go over it more if you want. But my goodness, look at how many quotes there are. It's unbelievable. Every church father talks about this subject. Look at this quote from Ambrose. He says, "You worship the works of your own hands. We think it sacrilege that anything which can be made should be called God. God wills not to be worshipped under the form of stones." And see, whatever Ambrose says here about stones, he could say about wood or gold. He's saying God doesn't will to be worshipped under the form of stones or wood or created things. But the Cathodox say, no, God does wish to be worshipped under the form of stones, wood, paintings. That's completely contrary to the church's teachings. If he wanted to be worshipped through physical objects like that, he would have told us. But he's degraded. Instead, he wants to be worshipped in spirit. That means in an invisible sense, with our mind. Such a simple concept, if you're spiritually minded, but impossible to understand for a carnal person who grasps nothing spiritual.
Yo, Luke.
Yes.
Also, now I just thought about it. You know how he talked about like how Basil the Great talks about like honor being passed or something?
Yes.
Like I don't think that analogy would work because they would never affirm that they would worship the image to worship the person in the image. They would never affirm that.
Exactly. They would never do that. Not of a dead image. That's the biggest problem, because they're like, don't you think that the honor passes on to the prototype? Yes, we do believe that we should honor God's image. But what is God's image? It's Jesus. And who else do we honor who's made in God's image? Is it a block of stone or a painting? No, it's human beings. So we honor God's image, the Son, and we honor those made in his image, Jesus. But we don't honor these dead objects because those are not the image of God. They are neither the image of God, which is actually Jesus, nor are they made in the image of God, referring to humans. They are completely lifeless, dead images of mankind's body. And understand that even a man is multiple parts. He has a body and a soul. And the thing that a painting is an image of is not even an image of his soul, because that's impossible. You can't make an image of an invisible thing unless you're making another invisible thing. No, it's an image of his body. So why are we making an image of his body? A body is not the image of God. The image of God is invisible.
Not only that, it's like it's not even like an accurate representation of the body also.
So true. There's so many things wrong with it. Also, in their this part where he says, because we speak of an image, in this section that they love to quote from Basil, I mean, Basil destroys him, because he's saying, if anybody accuses us of worshiping multiple gods just because we worship the Son and the Father, he says, how is that possible? How is it that we don't worship two gods? He says, well, because what we're really speaking about is of a king and the king's image, and not of two kings. So he's talking about the Father and the Son. The majesty is not cut in two, nor is the glory divided. The sovereignty and authority over us is one. And so the doxology ascribed by us is not plural, but one, because the honor paid to the image passes on to the prototype. So he's talking about it passes from Jesus on to the Father. We ultimately worship the Father through the Son. Is he talking about dead images here? No. But they'll say, well, he mentions the king and the king's image. But that's an analogy. The church fathers use analogies, sometimes referring to things that bad people do that they wouldn't actually do themselves. For instance, the church fathers use analogies of stage plays. Do the church fathers approve of participating in stage plays? No. The church fathers use analogies of boxing. Paul uses an analogy of boxing. But do Paul or the church fathers approve of being a boxer? No. The church fathers, like John Chrysostom, we read recently, used an analogy and said something like, and God in his great love, he came to us and he won us over with his love. And he says, God gave us a love potion. Okay, he uses an analogy of a love potion, like a drug. But do the church fathers actually approve of love potions, of drugs? No. They can use an analogy which people will understand, such as doing honor, pagans doing honor to the king's image. But do Christians bow down to the images of emperors? What do you think, John?
No.
Never. 300 years went by of Christians being persecuted brutally because they were being compelled to bow down to the images of emperors, and they refused to. Christians don't bow down to images. Daniel and so many righteous men in the Old Testament refused to bow down to the images of kings. So if they're going to use this as an example, then they're going to have to say every time somebody uses an analogy, that must mean that they approve of whatever is described in the analogy. But I have an entire section. We go to work. We're doing so many things without telling you guys what we're all working on. But I have a whole section a huge section that consists of nothing but analogies from the church fathers about things that they actually condemn. They'll make an analogy, but in real life, they actually condemn doing that thing. And one section is of all the church fathers using the analogy of a painting or a statue to represent the Father and the Son, but none of them approve of actually bowing down to statues.
Yeah,
It's just it's such an obvious like conversational type thing where it's like, yeah, and you guys know how this thing happens a lot in society. We're all familiar with this. Well, it's like this also. You know what I mean? And little did they know that nearly 2,000 years later, people are going to be obsessing over what they said in that one sentence.
Yes. For instance, look at this, John. Here's one from Epiphanius. Now, do you know that Epiphanius is a total iconoclast? He does not believe in ever bowing down to images, and he even believes you should destroy an image if anybody ever did bow down to it. Are you aware of that?
Yeah.
Well, he says this. He talks about the heretics who destroy the right interpretation of the scriptures. He says, it is as though a beautiful portrait of a king had been carefully made of fine gems by a wise craftsman, and someone were to destroy the image as it stood, reset those gems, and recombine them, and produce a likeness of a dog or fox, and poorly made at that. So he's using examples of images. He says, and then state categorically that this was the beautiful portrait of the king, which the wise craftsman had made, and by displaying the gems, the former craftsman had fitted becomingly into the king's portrait, but the latter had reset badly as a likeness of a dog, and defraud with the show of the gems the less experienced, who had no idea of the king's appearance. So anyway, he's using an analogy of a king and his image, but we know Epiphanius absolutely condemns anybody bowing down to images. So why would they assume Basil approves of bowing down to images? Look how many people do this. Irenaeus does it. Theophilus. Origen uses the analogy. Does Origen approve of bowing down to images, guys? We all know he doesn't, but look at what analogies he uses. He says, and what great thing is it if God made the world out of existent materials? For even a human artist, when he gets material from someone, makes of it what he pleases. For even man makes indeed an image, but reason and breath or feeling he cannot give to what he has made. But God has this property in excess of what man can do, in that he makes a work endowed with reason, life, and sensation. So he mentions men making things, but here he actually uses it in an analogy. This is against, this is homilies on Psalms. I actually have a bunch here from Against Celsus and others. But he says, and so that you may be more persuaded that if you revile your neighbor, you have reviled Christ, I will also present this from the holy letters. If anyone abuses the wooden or waxen image of an emperor, he is condemned as if he had abused the emperor, since he commits an abuse against the image. Isn't this incredible, John? He makes the same analogy Basil uses. In fact, Basil may have actually read it in Origen first. But does Origen approve of bowing down to images?
No.
And there are so many more quotes we have here, not just from Origen, but from Methodius. Who else do we have here? Athanasius, more Athanasius, Zeno of Verona, Eusebius. Eusebius, as you know, is a strict iconoclast. He says the same things everybody else. He says, for as the image of a king would be honored for the sake of him whose lineaments and likeness it bears, and though both the image and the king received honor, one person would be honored, and not two, for there would not be two kings, the first and true one, and the one represented by the image, but one in both forms, not only conceived of, but named and honored. So I say, the only begotten Son, being the only image of the unseen God, is rightly called the image of the unseen God. But everybody knows Eusebius is an iconoclast, guys. He didn't believe in bowing down to images, and he went and either confiscated or destroyed any images that people were finding and were doing any reverence to. So everybody uses this analogy. This is not proof of icon veneration, is it?
No. It's like it's such an obvious it's such an obvious false it's not a perfect analogy. It's so obvious that too, because he's talking about worship. If you took it to a logical conclusion, would you then say he's telling us to worship images?
Exactly. Who would ever think that? And you can even ask the Cathodox, which I've done in conversations. I'll say, now, do you think Christians are allowed to bow down to the statue of an emperor? And they'll say, oh, no, that's a sin. I mean, you've denied the faith if you do that. And I'll say, what? Why do you think Basil approves of that? It's bizarre. that they would ever do that. But then at the end, the part that they don't actually quote, this is where Basil destroys them, right after he uses that analogy to explain why we can honor the Son, and why it doesn't mean that we're honoring multiple gods, but that the honor we pay to Jesus passes on to the Father. He says, now what in the one case the image is by reason of imitation, that in the other case the Son is by nature. So he's saying Jesus isn't just imitating the Father, he's just like the Father in his very nature. And he says, and as in the works of art, the likeness is dependent on the form, so in the case of the divine and uncompounded nature, the union consists in the communion of the Godhead. So he's saying they actually share the same nature. That's why you're allowed, he's saying that's the difference between my analogy and the actual relationship between God the Father and his Son. Because a king and his painting do not actually share the same nature, whereas the Son and the Father do share the same nature. So the Father, by having a Son who has the same essence and the same nature, is not degrading himself. But the church fathers say if a king tries to make a physical image of himself that is beneath him and lowly, and he tries to get honor from that, well, then he's insane, because you can't gain honor from people venerating something that is not even the same essence as you. Maybe they could if you honored your son, your biological son, but not just a dead image. This is just what Chrysostom.
Mhm. And it's also, I've seen analogies from the fathers on the Trinity where they say it's like a father and he has a son in the monarchy, but like even they would affirm that like, that's not a good analogy, because in one case they're divided in nature, but in another case they're like the Trinity is united in nature, so it would only apply in the Trinity.
Exactly. The Trinity has the same essence across the board. Let me see if I can find this great quote. Oh, yeah. Listen to John Chrysostom talking about what he thinks about a king trying to give himself more honor by making a dead image of himself. He says, why feel as Nebuchadnezzar felt? For he too set up an image, thinking from wood and from a senseless figure to procure to himself an increase of fame. And the living would desire to appear more glorious by the help of that which has no life. Do you see the excess of his madness? How, thinking to do honor, he rather offered insult to himself? For when it appears that he is relying rather on the lifeless thing than on himself and the soul that lives in him, and when for this cause he advances the stock unto such high precedence, how can he be other than ridiculous, endeavoring as he does to adorn himself, not by his way of living, but by planks of wood? See, he thinks the idea, even that all these other people use an analogy of a king making an image of himself, they all think that's ridiculous and madness for a king to take a dead stone or piece of wood or a painting, a statue, and try to give himself honor from other people bowing to that thing. All the church fathers say that is stupid. So if it's stupid to do it with a king, why is it not stupid to do it with icons? The same principle applies. The living are not more honored by you bowing down to a dead thing, especially a dead thing that was never even alive. It'd be insane even to bow down to dead bodies that were once alive. But these stones and this paint was never alive. Does it make very much sense to you now, John? You see how clear this doctrine is?
Yeah.
I rejoice. We all rejoice to hear that you see, we're not crazy. The world has gone crazy. We live in an evil time period. Our priests have rejected the doctrines of the faith. The whole church is united against them. And they make it sound like we are rebelling against the church. But they think they have the authority to override the most basic doctrines of Christ's teachings.
Mhm. And another part of the analogy that isn't actually true is where they say like the king and his image are like the same thing. Like in reality, you wouldn't actually say the king and his like his dead image are the same thing. They would say
Exactly.
it's two different things.
Yes. But that principle that John Chrysostom is putting forward here is very important to realize, that they actually, the church fathers actually think it's madness to try to honor yourself by making images, dead images. They think there's no honor that's given, only ridicule and insanity. Anyway, yeah, got a lot of stuff on this website that I've been adding to that we need to transfer and make some different sections on the website. Maybe I can put this on the image of God section. But all the church fathers use this analogy of paintings and statues without actually endorsing the idea of bowing down to images. I use analogies. Everybody uses analogies of things that they don't necessarily approve of.
All right. Well, Luke, I'm gonna go to sleep. All right.
Yes,
Good
it
night.
is. It's an hour and 30 minutes. I hope you enjoyed the call we recorded if you want to listen to it later. God be with you. Talk
bye.
to you again soon. Is there room for more quizzes, Isaiah asks. I don't know. We got on the subject because I asked you about the image of God, and I'm on that subject because I'm in a little text discussion with this Orthodox guy who thinks he's some kind of apologist. He's just saying nonsense. I mean, I asked him at the beginning, hey, can you give me a single church father teaching the doctrine of bowing down to images in the first 400 years of church history? Just one? He says, yeah. He says, but before I answer that, can you just confirm you do believe that the honor paid to an image or an icon is effective and it passes on to the prototype? Do you believe that, Luke? I said, yeah, I believe that about living images, not dead images. You honor God by doing good to men made in the image of God, men and women, and to Christ, who is the actual image of God. But the image of God is still invisible. What do you think? He says, oh,
Yeah, and idols. Oh,
go
I thought you
ahead.
were
No,
asking
you
me.
keep going. You finish my point. Let me
Oh,
take a
I
breath.
was just saying that, an idol, an image, it profits you nothing. That's what the scriptures and the Father say. If anything, it accrues like negative stuff to you. You can get demons inside of you. Um, I mean, you're doing something that's categorically condemned by the scriptures and all the fathers. So it doesn't bring any profit, and it's not neutral either. But it brings a whole bunch of bad things to you to bow down to lifeless images.
Yes. And he does the same stupid thing. He says, well, the fathers from Origen to Athanasius. I don't know why they keep saying Origen. What is going on with these people? From Origen to Athanasius to Basil to Gregory, all
Luke.
alike. Yeah, what, Brian?
Maybe they watched the video you guys made on Origin and feel convinced now, just because they think he supports images.
No, that we were responding to that idiot David Erhan who pulled this same thing. I don't know why so many of them go to Origen. I mean, it's suicide.
I mean the video, the longer video. But I was just playing. But yeah, go on. Sorry for cutting you off.
No, I see. You're being facetious. I get it. It's torture, but it's also them just walking into a death trap for their false doctrine. I don't get it. But he says they all alike explicate. That just means they explain. They all alike explicate that when honor is offered to an image, it passes to the archetype. Again, even this would not prove anything. Even if they could prove these church fathers using this image language, they would have to prove that they believe this about dead images, not living images, because we even agree that the honor you pay to the living image of God passes on to God. We believe that. But,
yeah, doing good to your fellow man.
Yeah, but for the same reason, guys, that you're not going to get any credit on Judgment Day for having done good works. If your good works were all done for animals, like all these animal rights advocates, like, God, I saved 10,000 puppies from drowning. Will that count as a good work? God is going to say, no, that's not a good work.
It's a bad work.
Good works? Oh, exactly. That's going to count as a bad work. That's right. No, listen, it's exactly right. It's a nothing. It means nothing to God. He wants you to do good works for your fellow man, not for irrational animals, but even doing something kind to an animal has to have more credit given to it than doing it to a dead image. That's what's so pathetic about these people.
Exactly, because at least it has someone sense, like hearing or sight or something that's similar to smell.
Yes. See, even the scriptures, there's a scripture that says, even a good man will even He'll even take care for his animal. Scriptures do say that. I haven't forgotten that verse. We ought not to abuse animals. We ought to
No,
be
you're definitely
thankful
not.
for them. But see, nowhere in Scripture does it say, yes, build up good works for yourself, treasure in heaven by doing good to the animals. Bible doesn't say that. What sickness? Oh, painful. I have so many things to say about all this. But anyway, this guy's having this conversation and just being just so brain dead. So he's so thoroughly brainwashed.
Oh no, they just spew a whole bunch of nonsense.
And I said,
Why
he's
haven't
gotta-
you done a call with him? Why haven't you gotten him
because
into
he
a
won't
call?
call, because he's a coward. I don't think he's busy. I said, do you believe this quote from Basil is an endorsement of bowing to man-made images of Jesus' body? And he goes, I wouldn't term it as an endorsement, since he doesn't speak on them here. Okay, why did you give me this quote then, David George? I asked you for quotes from church fathers. I'm surprised he even admits that and says, nah, not this quote isn't that good at proving that. So where are the church fathers teaching this, guys? You understand, a doctrine of Christianity is going to be something that you find persistently repeated and articulated in detail by all the church fathers in every century. It's not going to be something that you have to scrounge for, like, okay, I got to the late hundreds, I finally found something in the late 300s, and it's just maybe just a little bit kind of like insinuating what I'm saying, but even then it's got some parts that are wrong, and it needs to develop a little more before it's what we're asking for. I mean, you're basically just admitting it's a heresy at that point. Why don't you just say it? Just come out and say, look, all right, it is a heresy. Okay? I had to scrounge for quotes. I couldn't find anything. Not even in the first 400 years of church history. It's a heresy. Okay? That's basically what you're telling everybody. But people aren't wise enough to notice that. When you got to work that hard to find even one church father. And by the way, when we say give us one, we are not conceding that one church father saying something, even saying, this is a fact and everyone must do it or they're damned. Not even one church father saying it would prove that it is a doctrine of the universal church. You understand that? The only reason we're saying, can you give us one, is to flex on them and to rub it in that they're not even capable of producing one church father within the first 400 years of church history that teaches their doctrine, which they claim is essential for salvation, and they claim comes from the apostles. That's why we're doing it. We're just doing it to flex, guys. It's not that one church father would establish this as a doctrine. But we're so confident we can say that. Isn't that a great flex? You're so confident. You say, just give me one. And then you can just focus on that one point in the whole debate. Hey, audience, you realize this guy can't produce even one quote from any church fathers. We've got hundreds to choose from, literally hundreds, especially in the first 400 years of church history. And he can't even produce one. Now, even if he could produce one, which he can't, I can produce, in the first 400 years of church history, I could easily do 100 individual church fathers. And then from each of those fathers, I could probably get 5 to 10 statements from them condemning what these people are teaching.
Exactly.
Is that enough on images? Are you guys bored? But guys,
I'm not bored.
It's not until these people have been thoroughly destroyed, which will never happen, that we can say our work is finished and we're truly beating a dead horse. We just want you to be equipped against them, and many of you probably think, I'm very equipped. I don't need any more. I'm good.
It's never too much, Luke.
There's just so much. There's so many different ways to attack them. It truly is like choosing your weapon. You just got all these huge weapons. Like I got this huge mace I could slam them with, or I could, pin him to the wall with a spear, or I could use my crossbow today, or I could use my my sharp two-edged sword.
Wait a second. Is this analogy that Luke's giving right now? Is this an endorsement of using weapons against people? Wait
Yeah,
a
Luke,
second.
I thought we were past
Now, if we
this.
clip that and we use that 2,000 years later, then I can reasonably say, well, it establishes a principle. We can't kill people.
So true.
Yeah.
People are going to be slandered so much. A new era of slander will be upon us very soon with the invention of AI, guys.
Wait, will I have to make a video acquitting Nolan one day? Or wait, that wouldn't make sense. Like it would have to be someone like so far in the future. But you think someone will have to make a video acquitting y'all one day?
Who knows? Who knows what waits?
Defense against Luke. Defense for Luke, written by Rufinus.
All right. Well, if we've run out of things to talk about, be careful,
Oh
guys.
no, we didn't run out. We didn't run out.
Yeah.
I got stuff to
Produce
talk about.
something. Produce something.
Produce something right now. Well, let's see, guys. There's so many different subjects in here. You want to talk about Nephilim?
You said Mary? Apostolic succession?
No,
Marriage? Divorce and remarriage?
I mean, we're talking about their heresies. Did you guys notice here on the teaching section, you can hit heresies of the churches. You see here? Heresies of the churches. And we've got 3 sections. We'll add more. We've got heresies of the Orthodox, heresies of the Catholics. For the first 10, as you can see, they're all pretty much the same because they're guilty of the same heresies. But after these, you start to go down, you see new things like Catholics have the papacy, which the Orthodox don't have. And we need to add links to some of these. But yeah, the ones at the top are their worst heresies. And these are heresies which, Isaiah, we went over with you to make sure you were very familiar with these. And then at the bottom, guys, you scroll down and we've got heresies of the Protestants. And we've added a few here. We'll add a lot more. But these are more just things that are general with all Protestant sects. Like we didn't add speaking in tongues heresy because not all of them are guilty of that. But we can add it here. You know, we could just have a huge list that goes on forever.
Luke, when it comes to this list, don't you think that sometimes it might confuse people? Because I think in the past, people who have been in the newcomer section will ask like questions about why certain things are mentioned, even though like I don't know. I feel like maybe at some point in the future, just to maybe avoid confusion, just making this really obvious, like what is more severe. Maybe just keeping it as little as possible, like what is necessary.
Like the worst things.
Or at the very least, we could just put something like in no particular order or something like that.
Well, I did put the worst ones at top, at least for the Cathodox.
Yeah, they always get a. You notice, like they always go for like the least stuff. Like they're always like the holy kiss. We actually do the holy kiss where I go.
Yes.
Meanwhile, like murder and idolatry is above it.
Right.
Adultery.
Yeah, that's what Ruben did. I'm like, let's see. You guys are guilty of murder, adultery, idolatry, blasphemy, Darwinian evolution, false ordination, simony, harlot women, effeminate men, exposing dead bodies. And he goes, yeah, let's talk about ordinations, please. I'm thinking, I need to push this down a little bit.
Wow.
But I think talking about idolatry is important, guys, because unlike murder and unlike adultery, they're all guilty of idolatry. All of them are. But not all of them are murderers fighting in war, and not all of them are adulterers, although a lot of them are. We ought to talk about the things that all of them are guilty. Talk about the things that are mass practice everywhere around them, such as idolatry, their false worship, the simony, it's pretty much everywhere, the effeminate priests, the immodest women. And as far as the venerating of dead bodies and exposing dead bodies, that's everywhere. I would say idolatry should be focused on quite a bit. That's the biggest one.
Yeah, very grave sin.
There's not much worse
Crime
than it.
against nature.
It's a uniquely depraved act. There's nothing natural about it, guys. It comes from demons. The demons receive the honor and they compel them to do more and more depraved things.
Do what? Sorry, I didn't catch that.
Idolatry.
Oh, yeah.
Well, if we've run out of things, I'm going
We
to
have
bed.
not ran out of
No?
things.
All right.
If you want to go to bed, Luke, you can. I'm not gonna force you to stay in here. But I'm always down for quizzes and mock debates. But if you don't want to, we don't have to.
Well,
But there's stuff to talk about.
Well,
We're
wait a
not
second.
all-
I
huh.
think Nolan's got
Yeah.
something. Nolan's probably got something. Does Nolan have anything?
Let me think here.
Luke, what if you go through your slideshow if Nolan doesn't have anything?
Vel video's always good.
Nah.
The practice run.
Nah.
I think everybody already knows about the veil. He told me that everybody already has all of this information.
You guys
so
you're
he
going to be
said-
so bored.
I think you said you're thinking about not even making it now.
Yeah, I forget about it. No, I'm doing it. It's almost done. We're going to have it. I'm going to go to work tomorrow and work on it the whole time. I have 4 weeks of training at this job. I just finished the first week, and I will get it out, guys.
All right.
It needs to be done. The world needs it desperately. And the sisters need some encouragement. It's something they can show to their families. By the way, cool new feature on YouTube these days, guys. An auto dubbing feature. I don't know how to activate it yet, but YouTube has this feature now where you can just push a button and it'll use AI it'll re-release your video and have an AI version of it where it changes the voice into any language. It will change your voice.
Really?
Yes.
Imagine how many more people that can reach.
It'd be cool.
Everyone, basically.
Yeah. I mean, they have live versions of it too. You could do it yourself. Nico was showing me one where you can take an entire video of yourself talking and it will take your voice and your inflection and it will change the language. It'll make you speak in perfect grammar in a completely different language. And it can do it live even with a slight delay.
Luke about to be having debates with Germans.
Someday we will, guys. Someday we can do that. We can have debates with people around the world. You ever thought about how there are apologists in every language, although English is the main one? And we could do cross-language debates. It's the Tower of Babel here.
Debates are fun.
They are. I enjoy
More
them too
opponents, the
much.
better.
Yeah. So John the Syrian went to bed. He's making good progress. It's great to see him come out of that heresy. When you have so much ammunition against these people, well, something's going to happen when we get it out, guys, when we go on the attack.
You're gonna have to make sure Nico has all the security measures on that website.
Yeah, very true.
And your YouTube as well. Your YouTube and like 5-step authentication.
We'll also back it up. We'll back it up frequently just so that if anything happens to it, we can remake the whole thing. We do back it up occasionally.
When you say back it up, do you mean like that all the files
Yes.
and all the quotes get saved to like a particular file on your computer?
Exactly. Backing up is when you take the whole thing and you download it all at once. See? Export. I can export the entire website with one button click. See?
Interesting.
Here it is. I just said all content, and I'm going to hit download export file. There it is. I just downloaded the whole website. And it has all the text. Now, of course, it's in a weird format, but you can upload it onto WordPress again. And, yeah, it's going to take a while to load it. Look how huge it is.
How huge is that? Let me see.
Look, it's all it's all pressed together. Like only the website knows how to actually interpret all this data. But like you scroll down, it has all of our articles in small text. But anyway, you can re-upload it. Anyway, you get the idea.
Oh, that would be painful to fix.
No, you
together
wouldn't have
again.
to. You wouldn't have to. The website knows how to do it. You just say, hey, I want to import a website. You go to the import tab when you start a new WordPress website. And then you just upload your file.
Oh, and then everything the way that it was before was just come right back.
You choose WordPress. Yeah. You can upload.
Oh, wow.
You can import from all kinds of different websites too. So we'll be okay, guys. We'll be okay. We're ready. We're gearing up for battle.
Yes, you're training soldiers. I'm trying to be deployed when the war comes. I've been studying, Luke. I don't know if you see me in here, but like I'll put in the status I'm reading quotes. I've been reading through the icons and images section to get familiar, and I'm gonna do that with the other topics too that you have on the screen right now.
I love your drive, Isaiah. And the fields are white for harvest, but the workers are few.
Yes, yes.
And we changed the icon,
When
guys,
you said
because as Christian pointed out, faces are inferior. Faces they're going to give the wrong impression. So we came up with the idea of actually doing something more symbolic.
Well, the old one was kind of iconic. I
Ha
liked
ha 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 ha. You're very funny.
it.
Somebody was
by
saying
the way,
something.
when you said the workers are few, it's interesting because there are a few people who are willing to put in the work to gain knowledge and to help others.
Yeah, I think we're going to see just a huge crowd of people. Easily hundreds, likely thousands.
I bet Nolan would just downplay everything, be like, "No, Luke, I think you're over exaggerating things. Probably like 20 people."
Thank you. Thank you for speaking for me. That's exactly what I was going to say. That's exactly what I say every time we have this conversation.
But we put in no work. We put in no work, guys, and you guys are here. We hardly did anything. And if we were to put in the work, then many more people would become knowledgeable about these things. You know, instead of thinking about how small our group is and saying, oh, that's just so sad. That's so, so sad. I want you to think about something much sadder because it exists, just like it existed with our brother Christian. There are people out there, guys, reading the church fathers, and they are completely alone. They don't even know if there's anybody, even another individual, who has this idea of cleaving to the early church. And they feel like weirdos, and they're probably sharing it with their families and saying, hey, look at the early church. And their family's like, you're a Catholic, go join the Catholics. And they're like, well, I don't think the Catholics are right. And their family saying, nah, you're a Mary worshiper, you're a Catholic. And they feel totally alone, and they're just not sure what to do. There are people out there, but guys, they gain confidence from seeing others doing it too, and actually seeing groups. And we will come across other people doing this. We'll give them the confidence.
You'll
But-
see.
Yeah, we will.
There's a lot of
Something
types
like-
of people out there.
You remember how much it flustered Craig Truglia? I hope you're watching this, Craig Truglia. We know that you stalk our videos. I mean, it really got him up in a tizzy when he realized how powerful we were at refuting his lies. He's stalking our comment sections. He's still leaving comments. He's one of the Orthodox top apologists. Not to give you an overinflated ego, Craig, because the truth is they're really barely scratching. I mean, they're scraping the bottom of the barrel here with their selection of great Orthodox apologists. If you're one of their top ones, no, but
Luke,
Craig is.
what video did he comment?
He comments on that same video that we made against him. He comments on it multiple times, but even more recent ones he comments.
Yeah, I seen some of those. I was like, oh, this is actually the guy himself.
It's Craig, but guys, if we could get attention from Craig Truglia, who's making these big documentaries like he made that hidden history of icons. I mean, he's making that with a Harmony channel. He's with the big boys. He gets to talk. He's had all the big interviews with the biggest Orthodox names you could think of. Craig easily got into that clique, and we will easily become a target when we go all out. But it must be done in the proper time. We must prepare. Anyway, we're not really talking about anything right now. Should we just go to bed? Who has something? Somebody say something. Or I'm going to bed. I got to go to bed.